It's not working also. Okay. Hi. Hi and welcome. Um, Mustansir Dalvi and I go back 20 years, at least as a friendship, more than that. So it's lovely to be sharing a stage with him. He's a translator, a poet, an architect, and a teacher. Have I left anything out? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And I'm Jerry Pinto, and I've been coming to GALF for the last 12 years, at which time most of you were probably running about in rompers uh, in the Vado at home. Okay. So that's lovely, but it's lovely to be here this morning. I want to introduce to you Narayan Surve. Narayan Surve's life story itself is really sort of startlingly amazing. Who's the guy with the camera? He's gone out, silly fellow. Okay, because the camera is there and I'm moving. Okay, so Narayan's, you have to understand what it was like to be a mill worker at the time, right? A mill worker worked 12 hours a day. They got one break for 15 minutes, and this is on the morning that this starts. Our story starts. Mr. Surve, Gangaram Surve, is walking, say the distance between here and Tanjim, just to get to work. Then he will work for 12 hours and then he will walk home again. But this time when he's walking to work, he hears a baby crying in a rubbish heap. And he goes and investigates and finds that it's a little baby boy that has been abandoned in that rubbish heap. So he picks him up and walks home again, and then gives the child to his mom, to his wife, and says, I think we should look after this baby because the rats were coming to eat it. Okay, that's what happens to a baby dumped in a this thing. The rats get it, and he goes back. He walks back again to work. Now they look after this young man till he's 10 years old, and at 10 years old, they call him and they give him 10 rupees, and they say, "We are going back to the village. Look after yourself." Okay. When he tells this story, when Narayan Surve tells this story, there is no sense of rage or outrage or horror or shock in him. This is why you have to understand what childhood means when it is not a middle class childhood. Because at 10 years old, you couldn't get from here to Panjim on your own, nor would you be allowed to. He went to work and became what is called a doffer boy. A doffer boy is the person who, there were these huge looms that ran up like about 5 meters. He would run up and down those looms like a monkey, reattaching the thread when the thread broke. That's what the doffer boy's job was. And then eventually he became a mill worker, and he became a poet, and he began to sing poems, and he became the voice of the mill worker in the city. He became the voice of people who do not write poetry. He became the voice of people who are silenced because we don't listen to them. Because we often think, when you go to college, you think of the security guard as security guard. You don't know his name. You've never asked his name. You don't think of him as a person. He's only an object of utility to you. There is the man who sells you fruit. He's fruit bhai. He's fruit wala. You call him by a name that is not his name, but is your use for him. That is how the middle class silences the poor. We don't know these people. We only assume that they have a use for us. So we broke through that and said, here's the voice of the people. Would you like to introduce Divte?
Yes, thanks. Divte, of course, comes from another generation. Divte is more or less the same age as us. And he represents, in a sense, another kind of uh, working person. But this is a working person in what he calls the post globalized world. And in the post-globalized world, you have, of course, the kind of blue-collar workers that Narayan Surve was, but you also have white-collar workers, and some of them are as exploited, and some of them find themselves in uh, the same kind of labyrinth of, living and making ends meet and being lured by the consumerism all around you. And Divte keeps his poetry in that milieu. He comes from advertising. He spent a long career in sales. He went all over the place in Bombay and Maharashtra and so on. But he then started writing about his own time, and his poems, I think from the 1990s, have had quite an impact on Marathi poetry uh, and on the Marathi language. So he forms part of a group of poets who kind of broke away from the earlier traditions of Marathi writing, which, according to him, were slightly steeped in sentimentality and the aesthetics of language and so on, and started writing a much more raw uh, uh, kind of poetry, which was rooted in the milieu of today, and also speaking the kind of Marathi that is actually spoken on the streets rather than that which is taught in schools. Uh, he is also, like all of us are, multilingual. So in his poems, you will find all sorts of languages. He writes in Marathi primarily, but there are quotes in Hindi, there's a lot of English, there's the occasional Gujarati, and so on. So he is, when you read his poems, you very much read a poem of a person writing today, but who is intensely aware of the milieu in which he is writing. And I think that is what makes him uh, quite worth reading. I think, Jerry, one other thing about Survey was at some point he also became a teacher, so he educated himself.
Certainly.
And I think that is another important thing to talk about.
Uh, shall we start doing poems now? Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, so here's one. What I love about this poem is that it is set in a communal riot. Okay, these are the things that they were facing before, and this is called butcher. Okay, and it's in the form of a conversation. What are you writing, boy? Nothing, Chacha, just pushing some words around. Daud Chacha comes in, takes off his fez, wipes sweat from his neck, his chest, takes a swig of beach bund, and sits down. His crutch falls, spread eagled next to him. Keep one thing in mind, kid. It's all very easy to write words. It's tough to live by them. Take a look at my leg. Your mother Kashibai, she is my witness. I am a butcher's son, but we don't cut pregnant animals. So independence came Gandhi style, and Allah said, be merciful. Achol folks, you never saw the like. Such processions we had. Your dad right in the middle of it. What was I saying? Yes, one day at the butchery, I had just killed a goat, skewered it, set it on the grill, suddenly a shouting. I ran. I saw in the crowd your ammi. Cut her, said the Allahu Akbar walas. Over my dead body, I said. They laughed at me. This one's turned a right Hindu. Cut the kafir then. The Allahu Akbar walas shouted. And we said to, oh, how they beat me. They beat me good. I saved my life. Lost my leg though. Right or wrong, Kashibai? So son, human life, that's cheap. Mutton, that's expensive. To live for words, you need heart enough. And here we are, with our snouts in the trough.
I think this poem may have been written in the late 60s, early 70s. This is a millennium poem also about a riot. And it is the title poem of Hemant Devte's book, Paranoia. In Marathi, the book is called Paranoia. And this is a poem called Paranoia. The slogans never reached me. Neither did the counter slogans. I only heard the rat-a-tat of doors and windows slamming shut, and the shutters rolling and rattling down, the hanging carcasses hastily taken down from the Hindu mutton shop. Both pimps and prostitutes went AWOL from the flesh pots of the city. The omelette pav wala turned off the stove below his tawa and beat it. Shiv Vada Pav Wala's vamoosed. The Bhel Puri Wala opposite the Asiatic barged into Churchgate Station. Jagdish, vendor of tobacco and pan, shifted his giant platter below the RA sign. I too was about to save my ass by making a run for it. But the sunny side up on the griddle of truth was yet to be placed between the half-fried pav. Hunger is like life, both large and long. One has to grin and bear it and fuck your mother in the ass. Sounds emerge from my ear as if a cricket is stuck there from the deepest depths of my being. He and I are trying to break away ever since the Babri was gnawed at. Whether at home and outside, death and the terror of death stalks us constantly. And when the time comes and the game will surely be up, whoever lives in Mumbai has to, until they get torn apart, even as they wait for it to get taken. Being constantly terrified becomes a habit. An addiction you can never overcome. Once you're hooked, you will never be able to shake it off. As I entered Mumbai's belly, a baby python entered me. Little by little, it grew larger and larger. By the time I realized the tremendous fire in that python's belly was far larger than the fire in my head. The human inside me was dead. Sounds emerge from my ear, and I'm thinking about the rent. The cost of bhendi has shot up. Probably a riot has broken out in Bhendi Bazaar. What crime have I committed to deserve these endless hallucinations that bombs are about to explode in the mall's parking lot this very minute? Needless questions keep plaguing me. Why did the price of mutton suddenly fall? What caused the price of pirated porn CDs sold on footpaths to suddenly slide? Why did they suddenly stop playing Mumbai Matka and start playing Hindu Muslim? In the Muzaffarnagar riots, how did Salman, who had just reached the day before, die? As sounds play in my ears, vehicles rush past, one after another, filled with heart-rending screams, filling me silently with memories of Godhra. Here screams of Ya Allah, there shouts of Jai Shri Ram. Ya Allah, Parvardigar, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, converge in my ears. Ears have no compartments. All that remains in my ears are sounds, and in my mind, the memories of terror.
For this one, I need you to stand up and I need you to hold the hand of someone next to you. Because we're going to do this together. Because this is a time. This is a poem called Tharku Naka or Stand Firm. Okay? It is a poem that Surve wrote to his wife in a time of difficulty, and we are facing the same time, and we need to remember that there is support and solidarity in holding hands, in standing with each other firm. And every time I say stand firm, you will reply Tharku Naka. Say 1, 2, 3. Full on. Full on. Got it. Got it again. Great. stand firm when I'm not there to eat the rice you cook with such love. I know this, I'm in a meeting, planning a better tomorrow. Don't wait for me. Eat, stand firm. On a night drenched in stars when your young body thirsts and I'm not there. Know this, I'm in the thick of it, drawing up a new charter of demands. Stand firm. Monsters may descend on you, thundering on the door. They may raid the house, they may take you away. Don't you tremble, not for a moment. Stand firm. Thank you! Stand firm! No, go ahead. And then we should take questions. Michelle, how are we doing for time? Okay. You want to do question answer or we'll just do poems? Huh? Poems, nah? Question and answers, I'm here, he's here. Ask them when you feel like it. Yeah?
Okay, this is a shorter poem called Death of a Poet. These days, poems have begun reeking of the death of language, but they cannot smell their own deaths. Even in dying, poems can enrich a life. Never have I heard of anyone dying while reading or writing poetry. O Lord of poetry, let a bullet enter my head while I'm reading poetry. If I'm the only one going to die, let a bomb explode while I'm writing poetry. Who else could be as blessed as I to die peacefully in the act of writing? And as I keep reading poetry, just poetry, let both the darkness and the light be snuffed out.
Oh. Okay, and sometimes we read a poem, sometimes that poem becomes a virus in your head, and you ask yourself, what kind of poem could I write? What kind of poem can I write? For me, my problem was when I started writing, when I wanted to become a poet, the models before me were Wilfred Owen. He had fought in a war. I thought you had to fight in a war, you had to see someone die. But here is a poem that tells you the ordinary, the everyday, the stuff that makes your life. That's the stuff of poetry. It's called Song of the Mill. It's 7 in the morning, the foghorn is yawning, the first shift's ready and set. The wheels are turning, the spindles are burning. We'll dress the world with our sweat. A 9-yard sari has to be spun. Only the bobbin just wants to have fun. The machine and keeps the machine in red heat. The breeze won't stop trying to keep the fluff flying. The doffer must make split ends meet. Our sweat is the fuel we burn. As the levers of Brahma we turn to pour out a cascade of colors. The skies give us blues, the fields their green hues. Our cloth makes the rainbow look duller. With the seasons turning, my field of cloths burning, Chaitra pours down the heat. Shravans are soaking when the fires need stoking, but Kabir never misses a beat. Kabir was a weaver, and so was Surve. And in this line, he draws a line between Kabir and himself. The sacred, the beautiful, and the artisanal, the everyday, the making, the spiritual, they are the same thing if you do your work with the kind of intensity that the spirit demands. Right? This Chandrakala is a lovely dark blue sari. This Chandrakala has the same color as the glint in a peacock's eye. Paithani's brocades, thousands of shades, roses bloom from chemical dye. At the Kaurava's court, the prince's disport, to Krishna she makes supplication. Panchali's sari won't end, thus does he defend her modesty from humiliation. Now he's saying, he's drawing a line to Krishna. We spin these saris out, endless quantities of saris that never stop. Now women can wear them and protect their modesty, but okay, he's a poet. It is we who make wealth for those thieves good health, the owners who amass much riches. We've no money to eat, hunger has us beat. Should we seal our stomachs with stitches? Can you get water that's in a glass? Yeah.
This is a poem called Ants. Ants whisper to each other about random work. Perhaps they warn each other about a foot-wide ocean up ahead, or about an inch and a half high hill that they must climb, or that somewhere along the way a cruel man has spilt salt to make fools out of them. Ants hold a grudge against these giant, hideous humans, because humans have decreed that only red ants are to be killed, while showing their grace upon the black ones. They seem to practice casteism with regard to ants. We red ants are merciful too. When do we ever bite sleeping babies? Honestly, only when someone gives us a hard time do we fly into a rage. Humans are unaware of how cunning those black ants can be. Should anyone cross their paths, they crawl into their ears and tickle them endlessly, leaving anyone who threatens them completely beyond help. All he can do is hide his face, as he just doesn't have the guts to speak.
Also, sorry. I find very difficult to sit on stages. And you know, like Survey's poetry demands that you jump up, demands that you like kind of you have to be standing. I used to do the translation standing because I just could not sit down when I was working on it, and I would pace up and down like angrily, and I'd then think of 12-hour work shifts, and I think you have an easy life. And this is a lovely poem called By Way of Introduction. And in one part he says, my sins will be venial, Mr. Saraswat. Okay, so the Saraswat Brahmin of Pune decreed what Marathi was. That was Marathi. Everything else was Gaonkari. Everything else was like, you know, it was Desh. Well, we were Marg. Okay, so what he's saying now is, I'm not speaking your language. I'm speaking my language. And my language is as beautiful and as powerful and as important as your language. And oddly enough, Marathi literature begins with just such a claim. Jnanadev, one of the 4 children, come outside and we talk about Jnanadev and whatnot. Come and ask me. Okay, Jnanadev, when he starts his writing Marathi, says that my Marathi has the same sweetness as Sanskrit. So this claim has to be made here, because we've got to break these things. Our language is as important and as good as theirs. Konkani! Come on, Konkani! Zindabad, yeah, what else? Come on, Konkani! Konkani! Konkani, viva! Okay, yeah. So remember, the language that your heart speaks in, the language that comes when someone pinches you suddenly, okay? The language that you dream in, that language is as rich as any other language. That's what he's saying here. By way of introduction, I'm run ragged in and out. My daily bread is my daily doubt. I'm a worker, a flashing sword, set to slash through the literary horde. Don't you quiver, don't go tut-tut. My sins will be venal, Mr. Saraswat. I've watched, I've heard, assessed it all. I turned it into what you might call my signature scrawl. All those learnings, losses, all that mess. As I live, I write, so I confess. Bread is dear, but I need more. I burn my bread into your door. To my words, I offer flowers. I give them swords, release their powers. I'm not alone, our time has come. Come on together. I'm not alone, our time has come. 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 Beware what follows is the storm. I'm a worker, a flashing sword, set to slash through the literary horde. Don't you quiver, don't you go, tut tut. My sins will be venial, Mr. Saraswat. Yes!
Viva, viva. I'll read two poems. One is really, really short. In fact, this is a poem in Paranoia, which is just one sentence long. And it is a poem called Terror. It gives you a general impression of the kind of poems in this book, which is even more poignant or contemporary because it is of the day to day. In Surve's case, there is a certain distance by which we can see these poems, but not in Divte's case. Terror. I sit to write, and those at home quake in terror. Absolutely. And this is a poem called We Are Cursed to Keep Speaking. Speak, self-styled poet, speak. Keep speaking to those demons or you'll never be free of them. Look at something o'clock or the other. The poison of religions stretches to infinity. Out in the street, holy men everywhere lie crouching in wait for us. In our minds at least, let us come together and crush them. In the darkness, let there be nothing but tremors. The poet's job is to show the way to the crowd that cannot be seen, in the blinding dark found locked inside a puzzle in stories that have rotted away. What say should I speak? To those who listen but do not hear, keep speaking. You have to keep at it. The deaf, the dumb and the blind, the bhakts who herd like cattle, you have to keep telling them until the blinkers fall away from their eyes. At some point, what we say will be of use, and anyway, other than us, who else will speak? Let the smoke of truth rise, let the deaf regain their sight, let the blind grow ears, let the mute sneeze through the stubs of their useless navels, let the thrash be emptied from their minds. Until the blind can see clearly, until the deaf can hear clearly, until the mute can scream, the telling should not stop. The job of the poet is to keep speaking. We are cursed to speak.
Okay, just because, I want... I think sometimes, I misrepresent Survey, which is why you should buy the book and you should read it, because there's so many different surveys in here. I'd love to do the funny ones and whatnot, but what to do? Yeah, I just love the way this Dongarita Sheta, it is a song. It's a song, actually, that is sung. And Survey says that it has floated free of him. In the sense, no one remembers Dongarita Sheta is actually his song. And that, seriously, is the greatest compliment a poet can receive. When no one remembers that the words are his, but it's become a song that everybody can sing because that in some way represents their lives. This is a woman whose field is up on a hill, and obviously there's no water up on the hill, so she has to carry water to it, okay? My field on the hill. This field of mine up on a hill, how long must I weed it? How many years must I kill, knocking myself out to feed it? How long must I climb and crawl with firewood on my head? How much water do I haul for one lousy crust of bread? How long must my baby scream and scream alone? His mama's dugs, they burst with milk, but she can't stay at home. Every year we plow the earth till the corn gilds the fields. But then the shitbag moneylender grabs what our work yields. Prices soar and ruin looms. I feel the nooses bite. What do I pay for? This or that? How long must we fight? This life we live brings no relief. They take the crops we've grown. They leave us naked, shivering wet. How long can we go on? We must guard each home, each hearth, for life itself to blossom forth. We must redraw the face of the earth, must smash the fetters of our birth. We must break free. We must cut loose. We must slip out of the hangman's noose. Go tell it across the face of the land. On my back-breaking hill, I make my stand, a flag of unity in my hand. Huh? Michelle, are we doing 10 more minutes? So one more.
Sure. So I'm going to read a longish poem, but it's beautiful. It is a narrative about Hemant's mother, and it's very engaging. Uh, his mother came from the village to the town, and his relationship with her was kind of fraught over the years. But in this poem, it shows about his mother's obsession with water. Yeah. And this poem is called I've Brought a River with Me.
Yeah.
The poet's mother's relationship with the drops of water trickling at the bottom of a deep well was like that of a mother with her daughter. She was beset by anxieties about that water twinkling in the darkness. She was betrothed to water, but no one understood her lamentations, nor the inevitability of her being a poet's mother. Like a poem, she wanted to live with water near the well, and if she could have mustered the courage directly in the water at the bottom of the well, and if not that, she could have preferred to remain an orphan. But the people around her got her married, and in doing so, opened the unsettled path towards becoming a poet's mother. Poems are never orphaned. There's always someone seeking them. The poet's mother, too, never felt orphaned in the orphanage. Thinking her naive like a poem, everyone cared for her. And as was her nature, she was concerned about everyone. She braided their hair, dabbed their scalps with grated coconut. Such was her simple, everyday life. And then from the orphanage, she was brought directly to the village, the way poems come to a poet's mind. But all she could do was braid hair and hand out numbered pills in the dispensary. In other words, which poem would a patient have to read in order to feel better? Before her marriage, no one taught her how to roll chapatis or cook vegetables, nor did she think to learn, nor did it interest her. In those days, often girls rarely found husbands. It was all good if all they knew was how to serve, for those whom they served would instruct them on all that needed to be done. It was a sign of being stupid, just like a poet. A poet understands very late in life that poetry can feed the mind, but not the belly. Then she had children. She brought them up somehow, while the other orphan, who was her husband, taught her how to make chapatis and how to cook vegetables. She was a poet, even if she wrote no poetry. In those days, which poet was interested in these inconsequential stories? Every dawn she would rise, sometimes not having slept through the night, and place a bucket under the feeble trickle of water in that huge well before the whole village awoke. And her immense gain would be 2 pots of water, one big and one small. Nothing was said, but in the middle of the night, if you woke up and saw her face, you would know that through the night she might have dreamt of the well, the rivulet inside the well, dribbling with drops of water, the drip, drip, drop of water. Seeing the emotions on her face, the poet would understand her dreams and her worries. Like the joy that floods a poet's mind after writing a good poem, one could see the bliss on her face and know at that moment she had become water, gurgling, flowing from the brimful well, the bliss of the gurgling water in the well of her dreams, turning into a gurgling river, flowing playfully over her body. She had the habit of talking in her sleep, and I of waking with a start, as if an umbilical cord still connected me to her. Through her, I have been blessed with the temperament of living entirely in my imagination, and have been granted a host of mental disabilities, like having the sweet daydreams of Mungeri Lal. Like a poet suffering from writer's block, she would occasionally get nightmares. That today was the day the well would finally run dry, that finally there would be no more water for us. This would make her wake up in dread, slathered in cold sweat, and in that state she would run to the well and try to collect as much water as she could in the night, filling up all the pots, patelis, glasses, vatis, gadus, and plates, and every empty vessel she could lay her hands on, and then slowly, like a little baby, go back to sleep. If we stopped her from filling vessels, she would stare at us with wide, angry eyes, demon's eyes, as if she might thrash us any second. Water, husband, children, and water filled vessels, these made up her household and her world. Over time, she started to hallucinate about water, running to the well at odd times in the night. Returning, she would fill every vessel with water, ruining everyone's sleep, heedless of their drowsy, mumbled abuse. Gradually, her stubbornness took root completely immersing her in a quandary about water like a poet drowned in a poetic universe, no longer trusting the material world around him. Then I brought her home to a place where water flowed around the clock. In fact, this was a precondition. It did not matter if there was nothing else, but the supply of water should never stop. The presence of water calmed her for a while. She stopped obsessing over water and turned her attention to me. All of a sudden, she would tell me, "There are lots of people waiting outside for you. They probably want to beat you." I would tell her I haven't done anything at all, but she would say, "Did you not stop the water?" "I did not," I would say, and she would say, "You have brought the river with you, and people are lying in wait to snatch it back." This is about half the poem, but I think it's a good place to end. Thank you.
This poem needs to be done like this. So sorry, I'll just rearrange the.
See if it's working.
It is the name, it is a poem. Survey's Wonder, the magic of surveys that he often took on women's voices. And he did it in the same great bhakti tradition where if you needed to talk about vairagya, you needed to talk about yearning and loss, even male poets would become women because male poets believed that only women could really yearn. Ha! But anyway, put your own name down, master. Right, master. Put your own name down. I'll tell you the truth with Mariai as my witness. You write, look at the rat nests in his hair, master. The gifts of the gods. Yes, the gods. This is a woman who's brought her illegitimate child to the teacher and is asking the teacher to put him into school. And the teacher has probably said, who is the father? And she's saying, you put your name as the father. Right, master. Put your own name down. I'll tell you the truth with Mariai for witness. You write, look at the rat nests in his hair, master. The gifts of the gods. Yes, the gods. Master, the earth is upturned, fertile, ready. But if there's no plow, if there's no seed, what will come out? Will anything sprout? So how will it do then to put my name as the father? How will it do then to say the boy has no father? One day my belly dropped, just like that. No midwife, no nothing. First there was fear, but then there was love. No, not the name of a god. What's God got to do with this? It was a man who did this. A man filled my pot. So put your name down, master. Put your name down. Don't ask my caste. We are not the one-man kind of woman. Not the kind of woman you marry. That's not our lot. Touch his feet, boy. Go on, touch his feet, fall at his feet. Only do this much, master. Put your own name down.
Thank you so much, Musti and Jerry. Another round of applause for that performance, everyone.
You know this. In your heart, you love poetry. In your heart, there is a special place for poetry. It doesn't have to be a place where you understand metaphor and themes and tensions, or you totally understand the poem. But every day, before you sleep, read a poem. I guarantee you your dreams will get better and your life will get better because a life with poetry is a rich and wonderful life. Look at me. Look at Musti. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Our next session is in 5 minutes. I have this stage this afternoon, and that's a very tough act to follow.